Hello, everybody. I have Terri Gilbreth here, and I'm super excited to introduce her to you. She is one of the amazing agents that we have here at Pemberley Realty, and I can't wait to introduce you to her and for you to get to know all about Terri and how she runs her business and services her clients. Well, hello, Terri.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate this.
Well, it's great to have you. So tell us who Terri is and how you became a realtor.
Actually, originally when I was younger, I wanted to be a realtor, but I went off to college and got into a regular business, and in fact, insurance, and did that for a number of years. And when my husband was actually transferred down to Hawaii, I decided, well, this is a good time for a career change. And it was a perfect time for me to live my dream, real estate.
Great. So how long ago was that?
That was about 6.5 years ago. So, yeah, we moved out to Hawaii for 3 years. And so I started real estate almost immediately and had a wonderful time doing it, challenging at times, no doubt, but just a whole different learning curve. Yeah. And then when I moved back to San Diego, I continued my job in real estate.
Excellent. So tell us about buying or selling in Hawaii, and tell us which island in Hawaii or which city were you active in real estate.
Well, I worked on Oahu, which is the main island, and that's where Waikiki is and everything else. And I worked all over the island. I would say to on the west side a little bit more, and I did all types of things. I worked with, listings. I worked with buyers, investors, some high end, some. I also worked with the military a lot. So it's been very enjoyable. I had lots of good training. I had some wonderful experiences with some really like high-end properties, and so that was pretty exciting. But I also learned a lot about the military too, about their whole, PCS and how they change stations every 3 years. So that's very important for them to buy and sell very quickly, and how the VA loan applies. Yeah, so it was very interesting. And of course, I also had to learn the uniqueness of Hawaii being leasehold properties, and as well as properties that require you to be 50% Hawaiian. So that was really unique compared to any other state here. Yeah.
You know, I've heard of something similar in Mexico, although I'm not familiar with the details. But tell us more. Tell us more about this rule and how it works in Hawaii.
Well, the leaseholds, what it is the land is actually owned by a separate company. So Queen Emma, I think, was one of the primary ones, but each lease is different. So every, complex that, owns it has their own separate lease, and it could be as little as 5 years, it could be as much as 30 years. And, there's a lot of pros and cons to them. It does also, of course, bring down the value of the home or the price of the home, and you have to pay a lease payment. So it's a little bit like a rental, but you actually do acquire a reasonable price, even including the lease at times, and it depending on what your goals are. So it just fits the personality of the person. If they want to be in Hawaii for 3 or 5 years and just say this is part of my life, it's perfect. And the downfall though is that anybody who wants to stay, they could take over the property, and they could either renew the lease, which is possible, and sometimes even offer to sell the land individually to making it fee simple. Or they could actually take the land away and destroy the whole property and start with some skyscraper building. So it really runs the gamut. And as far as the lease, length, that also has a bigger impact on your ability to purchase the property, especially loans. I mean, there was a couple lenders that could do loans for them, but depending on if the lease is like 10 years or greater, you could, but 10 years or less, you couldn't. So it was very interesting. I did sell a few. Yeah.
So, so you mentioned about you have to be a native in order to purchase. How does that work? And what do you do? I guess if you can purchase or if you cannot purchase.
Well, typically, I mean, the way it works is you have to be 50% Hawaiian, and it's certain homeland property, and it will say in the listing. So, I will, I've had some clients interested, and I always say, well, are you 50% Hawaiian? I've actually never handled one, I never had a transaction with one, but it's still very interesting. And, some of the properties are really nice and really well priced, but it is secured only for people who are 50% Hawaiian. They do a DNA test to make sure that you are 50% Hawaiian. Anybody could say that, but obviously they confirm it.
So that's interesting because DNA tests are the invention of the modern life. So how did they determine that in the past before this DNA testing was possible?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's a very good question. They might have checked into their records, like who are they related to? Because originally Hawaii was, solely owned by the king. And it's a whole long story how they split it up like a piece of pie. And they sold off the land to certain entities. And so that's why they do that. And they wanted to preserve certain properties available for the Hawaiians only, just like we do with Indians, actually. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, very different.
Tell us about California, and tell us about moving back to San Diego and selling real estate in San Diego.
Well, of course, I haven't sold in San Diego until recently. I mean, moving back because I didn't do it before. But San Diego's my home. And so I have lots of connections, and I love San Diego. So that was the reason that I moved back from Hawaii, believe it or not. And it's not terribly different. The weather's a little different. The climate's a little different as far as, you have a little less military here. So it's wonderful here. I love San Diego. I came back because my friends, my family, and I love it here. I've been in San Diego for almost 30 years, and I was born and raised in Southern California.
So it's interesting that you said there is less military here. And when I'm thinking of our town, because I've been here for over 20 years, and when I'm thinking of San Diego, I'm thinking that we are a heavy military town. So from your perspective and your point of view, then Hawaii must be more military oriented than we are here in San Diego.
Yes, I believe so. I'm not sure how many bases on Oahu alone. I think it's 4 or 5 at least. So it's very heavily military, much more than San Diego. We have 3 bases, 4 bases, I don't know. So we actually have less. And we have a lot of biotech here, though, which I think is really interesting. So we have, just more of a mixture here.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though I must say, one of my favorite groups to work with is the military. They are one of the best clients to work with. They are a joy, both on the buying side and on the selling side.
I totally agree. I actually dealt a lot with the military. I'm NRP, Military Relocation Professional, a designation. So that was really fun because I got to learn a lot about the VA loans and all about BAH and how long it lasts and what they receive and all about the, when they do PCSing, permanent change of station. And I used to go to the CREs, the Community Readiness Expos. So that was really nice because I really got to meet a lot of people that were, there for briefly. And I said, well, some people buy, and actually sometimes they just refinance their homes into conventional and then rebuy again. There's a lot you can do with a VA loan. It's tremendous.
And I am so excited that you told the audience that that you have the VA designation, so that if they are in the military or if they are veterans, they know who to call, who is an expert working with VA loans and the military community.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I understand about when they're, moving. I mean, I've had clients, in the military and they're moving and they need to move. I had a listing once where they needed to move. So, it's quick and you have to just, be there for them.
Be there.
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Okay, very good. Well, what about Hobbies? Tell us a little bit about Terri, who she is and what are her interests.
Well, as a middle-aged person, I learned how to ice skate, and I competed for a while. I went to nationals and medaled, and then I now coach. So I coach down at the Croc Center. So I see people all over the place, and especially La Mesa. That's where Croc Center is. So I just love helping people. That's kind of my spirit. And I do that even as a realtor. So that's just, I love doing it. We do exhibitions and recitals. We're doing one on the 31st, just so you know.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So not only you love to help people in the real estate world, but you also love to help people on the ice rink.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, well, is there anything else that you think we need to share about your services with our audience?
The only thing I would say that I did deal a little bit more with listings, and I had a lot of training as far as listings over in Hawaii. So that was just a little tidbit. I love listings, and I don't mind investors either. So it just is always enjoyable. So I like just about any type of real estate.
Working on both ends, working with first-time buyers or investors or
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and military too. Exactly. Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. And audience, if you are looking for a great realtor who was also briefly had an experience working at Redfin, and tell us a little bit about your experience working at Redfin and how that has made you be a stronger traditional realtor. That's what we call the audience. That's how we differentiate an agent that works for Redfin versus versus other brokerages. And Terri, tell us what the difference is and how that would be a benefit for the buyer or the seller that's working with you now.
Well, I think two things is that, first of all, I'm accustomed to fast pace. Redfin is, go and show, but I got very involved. And again, I'm a carrying agent. I know it sounds a little corny, but I really am. And I would really try to facilitate a very good, offer for my clients as far as finding out what the listing agent was looking for, what the sellers were looking for. So in that regard, I mean, I would show maybe 40 homes a week. So it was just massive. So that's how it works. But then I missed the fact that I could really, connect with my clients. And it really doesn't allow that. And when it comes to my clients, I love my clients. I mean, I just had a wonderful deal with one of a good friend and a buyer, and she's, I just helped her whatever I could do. And I missed that. And so I had to go back to traditional. It was just the way I felt. So that's the real difference. Nothing bad about Redfin, but they're a little bit of a mill. And The problem is you don't stay with the same clients all the time. So you can't be consistent with them. You know what your client wants, but when your client changes every day, and I'd have 2 or 3 new clients a day at least. So it's just impossible to know, do you have 3 kids and a dog, or you are looking for investment? I mean, those are completely different things.
Right.
Yeah. So
Exactly. And I think in our business, it really makes a difference when you connect with your client, and then you can feel what they need. You can give them
absolutely.
what they need, and this is the most valuable purchase that they may make in their whole lifetime, and
Absolutely.
not
Right. I
being
mean,
used it lightly.
yeah. First time home buyers, I love my old job. I did a lot of training. So I tell people this is how we do it. I did it even in Redfin. I went above and beyond there. I'm like, I'd explain the contract. I'd say, this is the contingencies that you have to consider. And, this is all the things you have to know. But yeah, as a new home buyer, sometimes people really miss certain aspects that are really important. And even my last deal, it was like she didn't know certain things. And once I told her, it made such a difference. It really did. Yeah.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Well, thank you very much for this window of opportunity to get to know Terri. And
Oh, thank you.
an audience, if you are looking for an amazing agent who knows the fast pace of the real estate world and can really service you, here is Terri. And if you are trying to get in contact with Terri, this is Terri's phone number. And if you want to send her an email, there is Terri's email. And thank you very much again for joining us, Terri. And audience, if you are trying to reach out to me, there is my phone number, and there is my email. And if this was helpful, we appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much. And everyone, take care.